Hi, this is Kevin Burke of Rachel's Vineyard. Welcome to Oceans of Mercy. We have a very special guest today, friends. If you or a loved one is a veteran and has served in the military, or someone you care about is currently serving in the military, you are going to definitely want to meet today's guest. We really consider how the issue of abortion affects those in active military service and how this can affect them during their time of service and beyond that, and also their spouses and their children and friends and family. Our guest today is a military veteran and registered nurse and has personal and professional experience in this area that will help to lift the veil on what is a very important issue for those who support our brave women and men that are serving this great republic. Jody Duffy is a registered nurse and current military and veterans program coordinator for Support After Abortion Healing Network. She recently served as the director of post-abortion treatment and healing ministry in the Atlanta area. Jody has served on an abortion healing Bible as an abortion healing Bible study leader and Rachel's Vineyard retreat leader since 2001. Jody has been dedicated to reaching out to those suffering spiritually and emotionally from the trauma of abortion. Jody and her husband of 41 years, retired Major General Bill Duffy, reside in Peachtree City, Georgia. They have 3 grown sons and 7 grandchildren. Jody, it's so great to have you on the show today. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. It's great to see you again.
Yes, you as well. Jody, can you share some of your own stories so our viewers can understand how you came to leadership and this outreach to women and men in the military in need of healing after abortion?
Absolutely. Prior to meeting my husband, when I was in officer candidate school at Fort Benning 41 years ago, or over 41 years ago, I had gone out on a date with another soldier, and a date rape occurred. And consequently, when I went to my next duty station, I realized I was pregnant from that. And a friend of mine suggested, because I was very stunned, I had no idea, and I didn't even know what to do. And abortion was never anything that I ever considered, because it never came across my life. But a friend of mine suggested that we go to Tucson, and that friend arranged a doctor's appointment at a doctor's office. And at that point in time, we went to Tucson, and I had an abortion. And I was in the military. I was serving in the military at the time. I quickly, like anybody else in the military, had to, get up on Monday morning, go to my job, put it down, suppress it, put it away, because you got to get up and drive on. It's the military way. So later on, I met my husband and we got married. He was also in the military, but I put it away. I just put it in that box and stuffed it down for a long, long time, until around 2000, when I discovered the Path Ministry in Atlanta, where I started getting healing through abortion healing Bible study in Rachel's Vineyard.
You had a unique experience. Well, not unique, Jody, but you had a couple layers of trauma that you suffered. Not only did you experience the abortion procedure, which of course could, as you well know, can be quite an abusive experience, and the whole experience of that kind of the anxiety and stress associated with a pregnancy like that. But you were dealing also with sexual trauma.
Yes.
On top of that, could you touch on that a little bit, like how that I think particularly makes it difficult for someone, how to deal with it. It's amazing you were able to continue to move along and function as you were, which as you shared is kind of part of what the military service requires of you, I guess, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You just have to keep driving on. And 41 years ago, military sexual trauma was not even a phrase. It just wasn't a phrase. You just didn't talk about it. You didn't report it. You didn't tell anybody. what,
The perpetrator, I'm guessing, was also in the service at the time, or
yes.
yeah,
And it was a date. Yes.
okay,
Yes. And you didn't talk about it. Now there is a label, MST, military sexual trauma. And unfortunately, many female and male soldiers are victims of military sexual assault. Many of those military sexual trauma victims that are females have had an unconsequential pregnancy because of the assault, and I don't think many of them or any of them keep those pregnancies, just because of the whole situation, being that it was tied to that sexual assault, but um, and because they're in the military. And there's even those who have unintended pregnancies that weren't a result of a sexual assault, but just, you know, consensual sex.
Mm-hmm.
Most don't keep those pregnancies.
Yeah. I'm so sorry you experienced that. It's a horrific experience for a young woman. It must be confusing. I was thinking of this, reflecting on your coming to the show today and knowing of your great work. But I thought it must be confusing for a member of the military to be preparing or actively defending our country. You know, you're putting your life on the line. You're offering your life in service to the nation and to the citizens of the nation. And oftentimes you're protecting. You know, I've heard from other friends and family who are service members who've served in the Middle East and various wars and actions. Oftentimes they're protecting the life of the civilians there as well. And it must be very confusing then to be participating in this action which destroys a life and your own child. That I would guess can be part of the confusion after as you go on in military service, or am I reading into that wrongly?
Well, I think what happens with a lot of women who experience military sexual trauma, who experience abortion while they're serving in the military, have that mindset of, I've got to get up and I've got to keep going. So, and more often than not, we just take it and put it in that box and we stuff it and we stuff it and we stuff it. And of course, you know, that there's cracks in that box and it comes out in different ways and different behaviors and different emotions. And over the years of working with women veterans who've had abortions, they kind of say the same thing. You know, some of them have gone to the point where they, after they got out of the military, became alcoholics, drug abusers. You couldn't do that in the military because you drug tested frequently, and that type of thing. But it may have come in behaviors such as promiscuity, sleeping around with a lot of other soldiers. I've heard that from women veterans.
Jody, can we look at just that for a second? Because that's something that, as you well know, women, and there are some men as well who have had abortions. That's a symptom of their post-abortion life. Not at least there's a period, it seems. Sometimes it can extend further than that, but there's often a period in the aftermath of the abortion where there's this promiscuity. Any thoughts on that? What might drive that?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, and for those who have experienced that, and from what when I've talked to them, in that subconscious level, we had an abortion. We got rid of that pregnancy. We got rid of that child, and we stuffed it away. But that being a trauma, we, as you know, your wife Teresa talks about trauma reenactment. I believe that that's part of that trauma reenactment, trying to put yourself in that situation again, where you would become pregnant and think, I'm going to do it right this time. So, and believe me, in the military, there's not a lack of ability to sleep around with other soldiers. I mean, so You know, you've
It kind of
you've
lends
got a
itself
choice.
to that symptom.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and so that can happen, or they can just tend to isolate. That was my symptom. I just isolated myself. I went to work. I did what I had to do, but I pretty much isolated myself from everybody because I didn't want anybody to know. Um, and I thought I was wearing this big brand of an A on my forehead, and
Mm.
people would know. And if I isolated myself and kept my walls up and my defenses up, nobody would know what had happened. Uh, there's other ones that just put it away and become workaholics.
Hmm.
And it's just there's a variety of symptoms that
Sure.
happen. Um, but from talking to other veterans who've been in this situation, most of it is, I don't have anywhere to go. I have got to drive on. I cannot, there's nobody I can go to. Of course, they can go to the chaplains, and, hopefully more and more chaplains are aware of programs like Rachel's Vineyard and Save
Hmm.
One and those type of things.
Yeah.
But for a lot of those soldiers, they just feel so alone.
Mm.
They
That must
feel
be
alone.
terrible. Yeah. I think that isolation, isn't it? That's such a painful thing. Perhaps more than some of the physical and other psychological impacts, the sense of isolation, of not being able to share about something that's such a deep and very intimate
Yeah.
experience of loss and violation that you shared.
Yeah.
How, do you think this impacts when service members have this experience? And obviously, if you have sexual trauma and abortion, that's a particularly serious situation. But even for those who they've experienced the traumatic experience of abortion alone, do you think that impacts them in their subsequent service to to our country?
I do.
Okay.
I have had interviews, uh, not personally, but either via email or whatever it may have been, with many women veterans who have had abortions, and they have been willing for me to share their stories with them. They've been through healing,
Hmm.
uh, and I did have a woman who told me that she was in a program to become a pilot. She was married, and she and her husband got pregnant, but because she was in the middle of flight school, she made the choice to abort the baby because of the duty and the mission that she was on at the time. And she said the pain was so great that she was having trouble concentrating as time, going through safety checks and concentrating on her flight school.
Mm.
And she told me that on her very, very first solo flight, she had so much pain from that abortion that there were a few seconds in that flight where she considered taking that plane down and
Wow,
committing suicide.
that's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what that's an interesting example because it touches on how trauma impacts the brain.
Yes.
So she's, firing up on the one part of her brain that's, the emotional trauma, the memories, the physical and emotional experience of that loss. At the same time, she needs her rational part of her brain to be fully engaged, in
Yep.
flying a plane and, like you said, doing all the checks. And what a difficult position for this. God bless her, for that woman to be in that situation.
Yeah.
That's a very good example, Jody.
Yeah.
Um, well, please feel free. Is there other aspects of service that you see this
Yeah.
impacting?
Um, the as I started to go on through the healing, and as I said, for many, many years, I've done Rachel's Vineyard and we've done Save One. And it wasn't until about a year and a half ago that some of I was going to put myself to pasture. I had, I had,
What do you mean?
well, I had served as the path director, post-abortion treatment healing, running Rachel's Vineyard and Save One. And then
Many years, yeah.
Then we moved and to another part of Atlanta, and I turned it over to somebody else. And I thought, well, I'm kind of done. I'm kind of done.
Time to retire, rest.
And God had different plans for me. God
Yes.
had different plans for me. And my friends Betsy and Liz from Path said, you really got to move on and do this for the military. And I had been invited to the Save One conference by Sheila Harper so it was 2 years ago, to do a presentation on abortion in the military. And I did. And my friends said, you just got to do this. You've got to keep on. I said, well, I really don't, how to start this. And God has his ways of doing things. The Path Ministry was going through some changes. They were going to dissolve as a 501c3, and they were going under a pregnancy aid clinic or a crisis pregnancy clinic. I went down to Columbus, Georgia, and talked to a crisis pregnancy center down there to see if they would sponsor me, because Fort Benning is down there. And right after I gave the presentation, COVID hit. And so nothing happened there. And I said, well, I guess I'm not going to do this. However, a little over 2 years ago, I believe you and I were in Washington, D.C., and I gave a presentation about the military. And at that presentation was Karen Barbito from Support After Abortion. A little over a year ago, about a year and a half ago, she got hold of me and said, I would like you to do a presentation about healing and for military and veterans and talk about abortion in the military. And I said, okay, but I'm kind of going to retire because I don't really have anywhere to go with this. And lo and behold, she talked to Lisa Rowe, and they contacted me and said, we'd like you to be program coordinator for military and veteran programs for Support After Abortion. So I'm not in pasture now. Now I'm back in full stream doing
like you said, God had other plans for you. Why, Jody, do you think it's important for our military members, both active and those who have served, to have a group, and you mentioned two programs. I'm going to real briefly, just for our viewers who may not know, Rachel's Vineyard is a weekend program that men and women can go through, anyone who's been impacted by abortion, either directly or indirectly, grandparents, siblings, etc. And Save One is a Bible study-based program. Sheila and Jack Harper, it's a wonderful Bible study approach that goes through. And each of those programs has its particular gifts and charisms, and they work very beautifully, I would say, and complement one another. So in offering programs like that, why do you think it's important for military members to have a program dedicated just for them, where they would be the sole, participants?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think I'm on my fourth virtual Save One study with veterans, active military, Guard, Reserve. I also have spouses, military spouses. Remember, I'm a military spouse. I have my husband was in for 36 years. So aside from me being someone who was in the military and someone who is a veteran, I am also someone who was a military spouse for 36 years. So I understand it from all aspects. Mm-hmm. So I have all of these people. And what happens is we have a camaraderie. Even if you're the spouse, you understand the military. You understand what it's all about. And a lot of times these spouses have had abortions while their husbands were serving, because their husbands may have gone on a deployment, or it was either mutual, or she was like, look, you're getting ready to leave for 9-10 months. I'm pregnant. I'm not having this baby all by myself while you're gone for a year. And then that choice was made. And there's just a variety of reasons.
Sure.
So
Mm.
when we're together, we just have that camaraderie and we all understand each other. And last March of 2021, we did the very first Rachel's Vineyard here in Atlanta that was dedicated just for those that were in the military, veterans, spouses. I did get permission from some of them to talk about and use their situations, not their names, because a lot of times what happens is the military itself and being in the military, the situation you're in, you think you have no other choice. So this couple that came on the retreat, he was a veteran and he had served in Vietnam. After in the 1970s, he and his girlfriend got pregnant, and he felt that the situation of him in the military would hurt his military career or, something like that. So he kind of said to her, no, we can't do this now. And they made the choice of having an abortion. And later they had a child, but for well over 40 years, they kept this as a couple. And when they came on that retreat, they just said, we just never knew that we could get this kind of healing. And so the other veterans that were on the retreat, they said afterwards, we understood each other. We talked the same talk.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm.
We got it. And that's why it meant so much. There was a female veteran who was on this retreat who I know had gone or partially through a Rachel's Vineyard retreat several years ago, but never finished it.
Mm.
And she didn't finish it because what she had not done is also looked at the military sexual trauma she had. She needed to address that first. She needed to get in the VA. She needed to have all that, worked with.
Yes.
And then she came and completed this retreat and said it was wonderful because of having all the, just veterans there.
You can see how God used your own experience, your personal difficult experience. And it's never His will, of course, that we suffer this kind of evil and sin. But he just as with the cross of Jesus, He can bring grace and blessing. And it's beautiful to see how you're able to reach out to a couple like that with the unique understanding experience that you have on the other side of healing. It's so awesome to see that. You also reveal to our viewers that abortion is never a private, personal decision, especially in these situations where people are serving in the military. They're feeling pressure to abort. When you are feeling a pressure, when you don't really feel like you have a choice, that predisposes you to more traumatic reactions. So out of love and care for those who are giving their life in service to our nation, it's all the more important that, and I'm so pleased that you're doing this work, and it makes total sense that a dedicated group like this, so much would not have to be said, or you wouldn't have to waste a lot of time and energy on things that are going to be understood. And so you can then really direct your work towards the healing. Yes. That's really awesome. So glad you're doing this, Jody.
Well, God just keeps putting people in my path, and He works in mysterious ways.
He does, yes.
There's there before COVID, there was a very, very big conference in the Atlanta area every year, where it was just vendors who did things for veterans. And for a few years, I would set up a table with Path and have Rachel's Vineyard information have Save One information about abortion healing for our veterans. And people would come up to me and they'd say, wow, we've never heard of anything like this before. And I said, yeah, well, the last time I was there before COVID, I actually was on a table across from a woman who's a veteran that runs a program to provide service dogs for our veterans.
Wow. Beautiful.
I remember her, but that was quite a few years ago. Well, lo and behold, I have a friend of mine who lives by me in Peachtree City, who was giving money from her Women's Golf Association to this particular thing for service dogs, and told the woman about my ministry. And the woman said, oh, I remember her. And I have somebody who's been trying to track her down. So see, it's amazing.
Yeah, those connections are amazing.
Yeah, it's just amazing how God works. So yes, that woman and I got in touch with each other, and she is giving her veterans the information about that. We have an upcoming retreat in February in the Atlanta area.
Okay, how can folks connect with you about that retreat, Jody? What's the best way?
Absolutely. If they go to, I would say if they go to the Support After Abortion, it's on that website. But also, I think the best way is to get hold of me at military, and it's an email, military and veterans at supportafterabortion.com. So it's, so I'm with the Support After Abortion, but you have to follow some links to get registered for it. But you can email me, or you can call the Support After Abortion and they'll get hold of me also.
Okay. Do you have that number handy, or?
It's
okay if you don't.
Yeah.
And also I'll just add for our viewers, if you missed any of that, here's an easy one, and I will connect you with Jody.
Yes.
You can contact me at kevin@priestforlife.org. Just give me an email, kevin@priestforlife.org. You can also call our Rachel's Vineyard hotline, and they'll connect you with Jody.
Yes.
That's 1-800-HOPE, the number 4, me. 1-800-HOPE, the number 4, and me.
And also, Kevin, if they go to the Rachel's Vineyard website and they look for the retreats and they go under Georgia, it will be under there.
Okay, so that would be rachelsvineyard.org.
Right. And they go to look for the retreats, and then they go to Georgia. They'll see military, they'll see my contact information, and then military and veterans retreat, February 11th through 13th.
You've also, we just have I think about 2 or 3 minutes left, but I wanted to just briefly mention that you've also served for years, and I've had some wonderful times of being together with you in outreach at the Supreme Court with the Silent No More Awareness campaign. Could you just briefly share about what that ministry is and how?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Silent No More is a great organization for women, men, anybody who's been affected by abortion, to voice what happened to them. We go out there, I give my testimony, other women, men give their testimonies as to how abortion affected their lives. And that it educates people as to how abortion negatively affects people. Yeah. And also, if somebody's listening to that, and we're hoping that, at the March for Life, when we do those testimonies, that maybe somebody who's younger may hear our stories and say, hey, I don't think I ever want to go through what these women and these men are saying they went through because they had an abortion. And maybe it'll dissuade someone from having abortion after they listened to what we have to say about how it affected us.
Yes.
And it's to educate the public on the negative consequences that abortion has on men and women, siblings, people who worked in the industry, and people who've been involved in abortion in one way or the other. It affects everybody. I mean, I have a friend of mine who drove her cousin to an abortion 30 years ago, and she said she still is haunted by the fact that she did that.
And someone like that, if you're listening and you have been involved in an abortion and you helped pay for it or drove the person to the center and you're feeling really bad about that, you are welcome on Rachel's Vineyard.
Absolutely.
Rachel's Vineyard also has people like yourself come through the program along with those who have personally experienced abortion, and it's a beautiful experience of God's mercy and healing. And you'll come to see how that that affected your life in ways you don't even quite realize. But so will the grace and blessing of God open up avenues for good things in your life as well. So
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
Jody, I'm so thankful for your coming today. I'm so thankful for your courageous willingness to share your own personal experience. And I'm also deeply touched and grateful for how God has used your cross and also his manifestation of his great blessing in your life for you now to reach out to others. It really is the power of the gospel manifest in your life and in those that you're touching. And thank you as well for you and for all those who have given of their time and energy, and some have given their lives in different ways in service to our great republic. Thank you, and God bless you, Jody.
Well, God bless you, Kevin. Have a Merry Christmas.
Okay.
And all good things to you and your family.
Thanks so much, Jody.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
Well, friends, I want to highlight again, rachelsvineyard.org. And you can go to the Georgia retreat sites in Atlanta and connect with Jody. And you can also call 1-800-HOPE-FOR-ME as well. Thanks so much for being with us today. And please share this program with anyone you think would be blessed by Jody's message today. God bless you, friends.